Now let's visit Vietnam veteran Lieutenant Colonel Vance Huston.
I went on after graduating '53. I went to graduate school, and my deferment continued until I got out of graduate school in '55. And then while I took a job in San Bernardino, California, teaching science, and I was a football coach. While I was in that job, I received a draft notice, and when I went down to take my physical and talk to the folks, I wanted to find out if I could get into OCS since I had 6 years of college. The answer was no, because you now have 2 children and you're not eligible to go into Army OCS. So I went next door to the Marine Corps, and they offered me a commission, and if I completed the OCS program and could pass the flight physical, they would send me to Pensacola. Went through flight training, specialized in helicopters, and graduated, I think it was September of 1957, and I went to New River as a helicopter pilot for my first squadron. And I went to Vietnam for a short period of time, once again in C-130s, and I flew aerial refueling missions off of Hanoi, where the strike force would leave the aircraft carrier and come and attack the Hanoi and the surroundings. And if they had to evade, they used up more fuel, and they would need more fuel to get back to the ship. So we were an airborne service station, if you will, that they could get fuel from us to get back to the aircraft carrier. Now when I go through an airport and I'm wearing my Marine Corps hat, I will have people whisper to me, "Thank you for your service." So there's an appreciation now for our service in Iraq and Afghanistan that is such a stark contrast to what we were experiencing when we would come back from Vietnam. I remember jeers, would walk through an airport and there would be jeers. I had friends that were working ROTC on college campuses, and they had paint poured on them. Because, you know, the servicemen that went to Vietnam didn't really have a choice. They were ordered by their nation to go to Vietnam. And I think that's the regret we have now as a nation. We realize that these young men that died and were seriously wounded in Vietnam, they had no choice. They were there serving their country, and so there was a real turmoil in our country at that time. And I've had many people come up to me and apologize for the way we were treated, because we were proud of our service in Vietnam. We really were, and we saw the assistance to the Vietnamese people, schools being built and things like that. You know, it was a real tough situation for the servicemen to be caught in the middle. It totally changes you as a person, and you become a part of a family. The Marine Corps, in fact, is a family. It's just a family that's very, very hard to describe to somebody who's not actually been through it themselves. It's affected me hugely. And they just had the traveling Vietnam Wall out at Grayson recently, 50% model of the actual wall there in Washington, D.C. And I cannot go in front of that wall, either the traveling wall or the wall in Washington, D.C., without shedding tears. I know in the second tablets, down at the bottom row is my friend Bill Tebow. And so when I stand there and I look at the wall, and there's Bill Tebow's name down at the bottom, I remember the poker games that he used to run in the squad bay, and I remember what a professional aviator he was, what a good friend he was, and it tears my heart out. Ralph Dryden, that I used to carpool with, he's 2 tablets over. We carpooled together in HMX-1, the Presidential Squadron, when we were standing duty up there at Anacostia Naval Air Station and preparing for presidential missions. We flew helicopters all the way across the United States of America. Those are close personal friendships. I have 5 close personal friends whose names are on the wall, and every time I stand there, I remember things that we've done together. Ralph Casboll, I think, is on the 3rd tablet. His name is up at the top. I was in his wedding, and I knew his wife. And I remember the day he got killed in Vietnam, and I went over to her house and put my arms around her and said, "Kathy, I love you. I'm so sorry." And so every time I see his name on that wall, I remember the wedding. And Elmy and I went to a squadron reunion not too long ago, and Kathy was there. She never remarried. She loved Ralph, and Ralph never came back. I often wondered if President Kennedy had lived, if we might not have drawn down that war and might have gotten out of Vietnam much, much sooner. We'll never know. History will never be able to tell us that.